Another media personality disrespects Jalen Brunson, and Chris and I are here to break it all down. All that and much more on the Knicks Digest. What's up, guys? It's your boy Dariel and Chris. And Gilbert Arenas from his show, Gil's Arena, goes on to disrespect Jalen Brunson. Basically, what ended up happening when the All-Star game starters were announced by Ernie Johnson and the Inside the NBA crew, the host of the show, Josiah Johnson, was just talking about Jalen Brunson and how he deserved to at least be in the conversation. And Gilbert Arenas stood up and he actually walked off the set. Now, I watched the Gil's Arena show. I'm a fan of it. I like it. But yo, sometimes Gilbert Arenas, man, he's just annoying, bro. He's just annoying, and like yo, he sticks to his points so much that I feel like he has tunnel vision, bro. Were you able to see? Were you able to see that episode?
Yeah, so I watched it because I knew we'd one day at some point make a video on this topic. And essentially, I just don't understand why Gilbert Arenas wants to act like one of these people where he thinks he knows everything that's going on. It's like, oh, well, real hoopers know this. And then walks off when he hears that Jalen Brunson should have been an all-star starter. All that shows is that you're following name value over everything else, and that you truly don't know what the hell you're talking about, because anyone who knows what the hell they're talking about wouldn't be stunned at the idea of Jalen Brunson being an all-star starter. The only people who are shocked at it are the people who have no idea what's going on and who are casuals.
I don't know if it's like a personal vendetta that he has against Jalen Brunson, because actually in yesterday's episode, it was Josiah, Gilbert Arenas, Kenyon Martin, and Rashad McCants. And I think Gilbert Arenas brought up the hypothetical that if Zach LaVine came to the Knicks, who would be the number one option as far as a GM? As
Bye. Bye.
as far as a GM, he said that like people would actually have Zach LaVine being the number one option over Jalen Brunson because of his length, because of his height. And I get what he's
All right,
saying.
now I'm actually leaving because of that.
No, I
Oh,
know. Yo, trust me, bro. When I saw that segment, I was like, I don't know what to say. I get it on one hand because GMs like they see the size, they see the athleticism, they see the highlights. And then when you compare him to Jalen Brunson, who's what, like 6'3", a lefty, he doesn't have hops. Like from a GM's perspective, I understand why the GM would think that Zach LaVine would be the number one option. But Gilbert Arenas like agreed with it, and I'm like in utter shock because like Jalen Brunson throughout this whole season has been showing you that like I don't care who comes on the team if it's a trade. I don't care if Zach LaVine comes on the team, DeMar DeRozan, anybody else who's rumored to be linked to the Knicks. Like I don't care who comes to the team. Jalen Brunson is going to be the number one option. And Gilbert Arenas, like he's like I said earlier, he's so like tunnel vision that he never ever like looks at like what's in front of him, and he always like talks about different aspects of the actual question. The question is simple: if Zach LaVine comes to the team, is Jalen Brunson the number two option? He said yes, and I'm just like, yo, that's insane. The answer is no.
yeah, the answer is obviously no. Zach LaVine averages 19.5 points per game on a team that's supposed to be his, while shooting 45% from the field and 35% from three. I don't see how the hell you could even try to pretend like you know what's going on if you think Zach LaVine would be the first option over Jalen Brunson. Clearly, who brought up this question? Because you said Gilbert didn't bring it up.
I'm not entirely sure how the question was brought up. I mean, the host brought it up, but I think
Okay.
I think they were like in conversation regarding something, and then that's how it like organically came up.
Okay, and this podcast is called Gil's Arena, not two guys from the mid 2000s of the NBA getting into gunfights and not knowing anything about basketball in 2024.
Yeah,
That should be the name of it.
yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I watch it, and sometimes Gil is like, like I keep saying, he's so tunnel vision that he doesn't give anybody a chance to explain their side of things. Like, he's like, no, this is the answer, and this is it. And then like Rashad McCants is always like being like the yang to Gilbert Arenas' yang, if you will. And then Gilbert Arenas gets so mad because Rashad McCants doesn't agree with him. And with this whole Jalen Brunson thing, I'm just like, yo, I don't understand how you could get so upset with just mentioning Jalen Brunson in the conversation for being a starter. He got so mad that he was in the conversation, and we were like questioning Damian Lillard and Tyrese Halliburton. So I don't know, man. The rest of the season, I'm so interested to see how Gilbert Arenas talks about the Knicks. Like, what if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals? Like, I think it's possible this season. And Joel Embiid, actually, he just went down with an injury last night against the Warriors. We don't know his timetable. He might be out a few weeks, or we might find out that it's like a serious injury. And if it's a serious injury, that's something else that's in the Knicks' favor. Obviously, we don't want anybody getting injured, but you just play the games that are in front of you. And if Joel Embiid is not in the playoffs, that's going to be a huge advantage for the Knicks. So
even so, I think the Knicks could beat the Philadelphia 76ers if they're fully healthy.
Yeah, it'll be a tight one. I would probably say it'll go 7. If Joel Embiid plays in the playoffs the way he's been playing this regular season, which we haven't seen yet because he's always injured, or I don't know, he just always chokes in the playoffs. If Embiid plays this way in the playoffs, I think against the Knicks, it will probably go 7 because Embiid is on another level.
I agree. Embiid is obviously the best player on the court in the series. There's no real argument that he's not. But Brunson's the second best player on the court, and the Knicks have a better team through and through than Philadelphia. And also, the last time the Knicks and the 76ers played, the Knicks sparked Philadelphia, which is part of it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I'm struggling to comprehend why Gilbert Arenas thinks so little of Jalen Brunson. And I'm not going to say that I know more about the sport of basketball than Gilbert Arenas or you, because, you and Gilbert Arenas have something in common that I don't, which is called professional basketball. You never bring it up, so I'm going to bring it up.
Many moons ago.
You still did, and I didn't. I play 2K. Pretty good at that. I'm pretty good at that. I'm like,
I appreciate
150 and 13 and play now online. It's pretty good. But no, I don't get it. Gilbert Arenas was a scorer first point guard. I get he was a super athlete. I do get that. But like, shouldn't he want to be like raising up and propelling these guys who are also score first point guards like Jalen Brunson, who are really who they are through hard work, similar to Gilbert Arenas? I don't understand. It feels like he should be a fan of Brunson's.
I think the biggest detriment that he has towards Jalen Brunson is his height. He can't get past Jalen Brunson's height. Every time he talks about Jalen Brunson, he's always talking about a 6'2", 6'3" player being your best player on the team is not gonna work. It's not gonna lead you to the promised land. And he always talks about it whenever he brings up the Knicks and Jalen Brunson, but he doesn't take into account like Jalen Brunson. Yeah, he's not 6'6", 6'7", but the way he does his damage is like fundamentally just like beating guys off the dribble, his pivot foot, like knowing when to make certain decisions, when to attack, when to pull it out. Like, oh man, I don't know. Jalen Brunson, like he's one of the smartest players. As far as like his footwork, his footwork, and there's this one move he always does. He always catches the defense where he's kind of coming downhill, but he dribbles the ball right in front of him, and then he grabs the ball with 2 hands, and then he swings the ball through the defender's arm. And it's an automatic foul, and I feel like he picked that from James Harden. But like that's one of the things that I don't think Gilbert Arenas gives Jalen Brunson enough credit. Like his cerebralness, and like I don't like James Harden as a player, but like that's the one thing I'll give him when he was in his prime. Like as far as attracting foul calls and just getting easy buckets, like he was a mastermind. Like I can't front. And that's how we got his numbers up, and that's how we eventually got the regular season MVP. But like, I feel like Jalen Brunson really took something from James Harden game, and that was it. Just getting easy foul calls.
I have a question that maybe you could answer.
What's up?
So Gilbert Arenas doesn't believe that players who are like a 6'2" point guard, 6'2", 6'3" point guard could lead a team to a championship. That's fair. In the history of basketball, not too many have. But Gilbert Arenas is and always has been, and I'm saying this as a positive, very confident. The man has confidence like very few other people. But how tall does Gilbert Arenas think he is?
How tall is he?
He's listed as 6'4". That's the same thing as 6'3".
And yeah, and another thing Gilbert Arenas always says, like he always harps on how like players' wingspans, players' heights. He always harps on like they always take that measurement like when you get drafted into a rookie, but then they don't change it throughout your career. So like obviously you might enter the league at 18, 19 and you grow until men grow I think until 21. And then he
all
also
sorts of the growth spurt at 22.
yeah, and then he also takes into account like whenever the NBA they take your measurements whenever you're like in the draft combine, I don't know, something like that. It's always without shoes. So then like he always harps on like players are taking whoever's taking the measurements of the players, it's always without shoes. So then with shoes you got to add on like an extra 2 inches. So I don't know. It's a lot of technicalities with Gilbert. I'm noticing watching his show. It's like a lot of technicalities. Like Rashad McCants would get on him and be like, "Yo, no, you said this," and then Gilbert Arenas was like, "Well, if you were actually listening, I said this, but I said it in a hypothetical situation." And I'm like, "Yo, he can never be wrong. He always has to make an excuse, and he can never just be like, yo, you know what, you got it." And that's super annoying to me.
Yeah, that's upsetting, especially because Gilbert Arenas is basically the same height as Jalen Brunson. And also, when Gilbert Arenas was in his third NBA season, the 2003-2004 season, I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm looking at Basketball Reference right now. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I was 2. I'm pretty sure most people thought Chauncey Billups was the best player on that Detroit Pistons team.
Yeah. Chauncey was the best team on that championship Detroit Pistons team.
Yeah, like obviously you got Big Ben Wallace, who was great, one of the best defenders at his peak that any NBA player has ever been. I mean, Rip Hamilton, obviously. I don't know the whole friggin' group of people. Again, I was 2 years old when that team won a championship.
I can name the starting five if you want, because I don't know. Like, I think I was like,
yeah, who was Tyshawn Prince, the small forward? Was he there?
So it was
okay, he was there. I didn't know if he was there on that team.
So it was Chauncey at the 1, Rip at the 2, Prince at the 3, Rasheed at the 4, Ben Wallace at the 5. I was like 13. I was like 13.
That's a good team. Like, it's a good all-around team. And another reason why I'm bringing them up, not just the height reason, is because there's shades of that with the Knicks. Is there a clear superstar on the team? Brunson's on the border, which is farther than Chauncey probably was, unless, again, I'm wrong. Don't really know the history of the 2000s as well as any other history in basketball time for some reason. If you look at Brunson, he's the best player on the team. He's the closest thing the Knicks have to a superstar. If you look at Julius Randle, I'm not going to compare everyone to the counterpart of the Detroit Pistons, but if you look at Randle, again, great player. Look at Mitchell Robinson, elite defender. If you look at Dante DiVincenzo, elite shooter. OG, elite 3-and-D player. First of all, it does kind of similarly line up to Detroit in a way, for sure. But really where I'm going with this is the Knicks have a similar vibe of, yeah, maybe there's not one true superstar who's going to lead them to the promised land, but they have a deep team of 5 guys who are all above average NBA starters with a good bench. That has proven that it can win a championship in the NBA, especially in a league where there's not a ton of parity right now. Or where is a ton of parity, where the league is full of parity. There's not a clear favorite to win the finals. I mean,
no.
The Celtics and the Nuggets, I guess, but you can't say, like with the Warriors, when they were at the peak of their power with that Hamptons 5, as they called it, because they all mobbed KD's house in the Hamptons.
Yeah.
We're not going to look at it and be like, okay, that team's going to win unless there's like 4 different injuries. And what happened? The Warriors won until both Clay and KD got injured. And if you look at other teams, there have been great LeBron teams. There have been the Denver Nuggets last year, who it's not like they were overpowered. They weren't, but they were they were the best basketball team in the NBA last year.
We also got to keep in mind how Gilbert Arenas believed that Jalen Green coming to the Knicks would be the biggest superstar. Like, yo, he's standing on it. Like yesterday, I forgot.
Oh, yeah, he talked about it again.
Yeah, he talked about it again, like briefly, and he was like, "Oh, and you guys thought I was wrong." Like, yo, get out of here, bro. Like, no, Jalen Green is like, and he's not gonna admit it. Like, I don't. What? Like Jalen Green? Stop! It's like his 3rd season, and he's still like. No, he's not there yet, and I don't think he's ever going to get to.
Jalen Green plays similarly to Gilbert Arenas. That's all it is.
Maybe, and
they're high flyers who can kind of shoot sometimes.
I mean, Gilbert Arenas wasn't really a high flyer, but like as far as like offensively being super duper aggressive, yeah, I can easily see the comparison.
Fair.
But like Jalen Green, like no, I don't care. He's only in his third season. He doesn't even know if he's like a true NBA professional yet. Like I feel like this is his first real season being in the NBA because his first two seasons were jokes. Like
those Rockets teams were terrible. They were not doing him any favors.
They were horrible. So I feel like this is his first real season of like having competitive NBA basketball and seeing what it actually takes to make an impact on both ends. And I'm like, no, New York Knicks fans, we don't want Jalen Green. And if he comes to the Knicks, like, no, he's not going to be an all-star or a superstar with the Knicks. Like, no.
Why the hell would we want Jalen Green?
Yo, I really wish that, like, he, like, I don't know, man. I feel like, I hope that, like, he gets mad. Hopefully he catches one of our videos and he sees me just going at him and how wrong his takes are. And then he mentions us. And then, like, I don't know, I'm praying, like, literally fantasizing, me just being on the set. And everything Gilbert Arenas is saying, I'm, like, going to go against him. I'm going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, no, you're wrong. Admit you're wrong. Give Rashawn McCann some flowers because you're wrong. And Rashawn McCann has been right ever since he joined the show.
I'm not taking what Gilbert Arenas says about the Knicks too seriously, especially when he clearly hasn't watched a single Knicks game this year. I bet if you asked him to name the Knicks starting five, he would say Brunson, Randall, and then not know anyone else on the roster before saying RJ Barrett.
All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Leave it in the comments. Let us know how crazy you think Gilbert Arenas is. But until next time, it's always go Knicks. Taj Gibson for president. Jalen Brunson for NBA regular season MVP. And we out. Peace.